Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 51st part of What If Deku Can't Stop Adopting Kids. Hope you enjoy. Link to the original story and author in the description. Chapter 272, The Birds Aren't Real. Izuku wished that he could go any extended amount of time without something insane happening. Or at the very least the insane things could have the decency to not overlap. Having the Fuhai resurrection event so close to the concert ninja trap event was not good for his health. Seriously, what is my life? Izuku sighed, rubbing his temples as he laid back in his bed. Knock knock knock. Come in, Izuku said, sitting up to face whoever was coming in. Hi, Dad, Yami said as he entered, Sakio by his side. Can I break some laws? Now, any normal parent would answer no and then thoroughly admonish the child. But Izuku was not a normal parent, nor was he in any position to admonish someone for breaking the law. Which ones and why? XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX into the abyss. The grim lake that Yami had made to make Sakio had been made far deeper. So deep that Izuku couldn't see the bottom. And since it wasn't full of grim goop, it was currently just a massive hole in the ground. PLAP. Although it appeared that wouldn't be the case for very long. Up above, a bird flew over the hole, before spitting out grim goop into the abyss. The bird then flew down towards them, before landing right in front of Izuku. Then the bird's form suddenly changed, turning into something like a grim pelican, with a mind weaver on its head. These are couriers, Yami explained. They can gather negative emotion, turn it into goop like me, and then spit it out. I can also use the negative energy they use to increase my own power during battle, Sakio explained. Father wishes to scatter these birds across the city, to gather negativity instead of using those crystals. Mind weavers make them look like normal birds, so no one notices. Yami continued. And if someone finds out? Palmf. Suddenly the courier exploded, before turning into black smoke. No proof. Yami finished. I see. You've thought this through. Izuku said, thinking about the notion. Of course, doing something like this would be illegal, but it's not like anyone could prove anything. All right. I'll allow it. Although I'd like you to keep the amount of these you send out very limited. Make sure not too many of them are in the same place. Understood? Yes, Dad/Grandpa. Said both of them. By the way, what do you intend to do with this much negative energy? Izuku asked as he stared back into the abyss. Yami shrugged. Make grim. Gather energy. In case of emergency. Fair enough. We'll never know when we might need it. Izuku said. Now that I think about it. These things would also take energy away from Sin. So all around, nothing but benefits. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX asked. Not really, also why are you in my room? Lo asked as he looked up from his tablet. Well, when you think about it, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. G pointed out. You can barely shoot really big lasers without collapsing, and yet you were able to jump not just from one country to another, but hundreds of years into the future. And you survived. Sure, you were going to die had we not helped you, but the fact that you survived long enough for us to help you, or rather the fact that you didn't instantly die, heck, the fact that your body held up long enough to do that at all, just doesn't make any sense. Even taking the Chaos Emerald into account, your body simply shouldn't have been able to do that. Is there a point to this? Lu asked, rolling his eyes. Yes. I believe I understand how you did it. G said excitedly. You see, I was reading about how when moving at different speeds, can alter the flow of time. And I found it very interesting how one can exist in a flow of time separate from the norm. Then I thought of you. Do you recall your ability to quote-unquote slow down time? Yeah. Why? Lo asked, getting a tiny bit more interested. Well, again, that ability doesn't make any sense. G pointed out. Your body shouldn't be able to handle that much power. However, what if you weren't actually slowing down time, but altering your personal flow of time? Altering the very space you exist in, so for everyone else, it looks like you're moving faster, and for you, it looks like everyone else is slower. Can you say that in less words? Lou asked. You altered space to make yourself move through time faster. G summarized. Oh, wouldn't that also need a crazy amount of power to work? Lou asked. Yes, which is why you couldn't keep it up for long, G explained. But altering space for just you would use much less energy than slowing down time everywhere in the universe. I guess. But what does that have to do with how we time traveled? Lou inquired. My theory is that instead of catapulting yourself through time, you simply moved you and Maria into some kind of different dimension or space, where time moved very differently. G mused. Basically, less than a second in that place was hundreds of years in our time. And the only reason you got out was because our Chaos Emerald pulled you out. Okay, I'm gonna need you to simplify that again, Lou told her bluntly. G sighed, pulled out a journal, and started drawing. Okay, imagine time in our world as a river, moving forward at a certain speed. You managed to move to a different river that was next to this one, that was moving much, much faster. Then after moving forward enough, our Chaos Emerald contacted yours, and got it to move you back to our river. For you, it was less than a second, but because that river was traveling so much faster, by the time you got back to this river you were much further down the stream. Nope. Still don't get it. Lou said honestly. G rubbed the bridge of her nose in frustration. Imagine there is a room, where time moves differently. Spending 1 second in that room, and hundreds of years will have passed in the rest of the world. When you used your power, you went into that room, and the 2 Chaos Emeralds pulled you out. Alright, I think I get it, Lou said after thinking about it for a while. Kinda. Does that mean I can go into a room that makes time go backward? While I can't say that's impossible, it is highly unlikely, G answered. Time in our world only flows forward, and while bending space can change how fast it moves, there's never been any way to make it move backward. But take all of this with a grain of salt. I'm not a scientist, yet, and all of this is just a theory. I would suggest we visit the lab and have this theory tested. It might increase your proficiency with time-space manipulation. Sure. Why not? Lou said, as he finally got up from his bed, and grabbed her hand. To the lab then. Scope. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX asked. She managed to catch Fu in the cafeteria just finishing a meal and took the opportunity to sate her curiosity. Trying not to, Fu said as he gulped down his last bit of meat. But I guess I can't do that forever. Honestly, I don't know what to think about. Half of my memories are fake, or don't belong to me, or whatever, but what would I be without those memories? Would I be the same person? Completely different? Because I'm already really different, but would I be more different? What does this make me? So, you don't know what to think of it. Nee sighed, looking a bit crestfallen. Why are you so disappointed? Fu realized what was going on here. You do realize you're not a clone, right? Yeah, but I'm not the real me either, Nee said, looking down at herself. But I feel real? And the real me was a murderer? So, how am I supposed to take that? What do I do? And then Nee's eyes glazed over. Oh. It's you again. Fu recognized, as suddenly Nee's expression turned sharp. Hello, Kara. Yes. Hi. Can you do me a favor and get that whinging little shit to stop complaining? Kara said, sounding intensely annoyed. Yeah, how dare she be upset that she doesn't know who she is and she's stuck in the same body as a former assassin, Fu said, rolling his eyes. Honest, the nerve of that girl. Also, the fact that you can take over her body at any time is pretty concerning. Kira rolled her own eyes in response. I have no intention of taking over the body unless I have to. This is the exception, and it's only because she won't stop complaining. And why is that? Fu asked. If you can take over at any point, why are you almost never around? Why let Nice take control, at all? Have you ever thought that maybe I don't want to be in control? Kira glared. I just want to fall asleep, and never wake up. Nice can have the body, so long as she doesn't put us in danger, and doesn't waste our life doing stupid crap that makes no one happy. So could you just tell her to stop caring about our stupid past? That's not gonna work. Fu pointed out. She needs closure. And that's something the two of you need to work on. Also, I'm pretty sure that just trying to vanish into your own mind is a bit unhealthy. Ugh. You just don't get it. Kira facepalmed. Why do I even bother? Then Kira froze for a second, before her expression changed, becoming confused, and then panicked. Oh no! Did she take control? Did she kill anyone? Now she doesn't seem to do that anymore, Fu said. And even if she wanted to, the only person around here is me. And we both know how that went. Sploosh. And then Fu's head exploded. Ah! I didn't do that. Nice stuttered. I wonder if she realizes she's only making things worse. Fu thought as he regrew his head. Chapter 273, Chaos Clash. Lu and Seikyo stared down each other, standing in the remains of a ruined city. Which was actually the sim room. You ready? Lu asked, folding his arms and staring at Seikyo confidently. Are you? You seem rather smug, considering you're facing an immortal, which I don't see why you should be. Seikyo said. My power grows every day. Li's body then exploded with a red aura. Even you won't be a threat to me for much longer. Very well then. Seikyo chuckled. Let us begin. Scope. Immediately, Li teleported away, leaving Seikyo on high alert. Looking around for Lu. After a while of just nothing, she started getting a bit frustrated. You know, running your mouth like that only to run away like a coward, is rather embarrassing. Scope. Stab. Seikyo didn't even have time to react to Lu teleporting behind her before he stabbed her through the back with a chaos lance. Scope. Kaboom! Lu teleported away, as the lance exploded inside Seikyo, utterly obliterating her body in a big explosion. Meanwhile, Lu had teleported onto what remained of a large building, looking down at the smoking crater, where dark energy swelled. Looks like I destroyed her body. Good, that means I can move on to the next part. Lu raised his hand up in front of him and closed his eyes. Chaos wave. A very weak wave of chaos energy shot out of his hand, encompassing the area in front of him, and continuing on for a little while, before coming back at him. Once the energy went back into his body, Lu felt an intense headache, as the energy painted a detailed picture of the world in front of him, including revealing the location of the several couriers that were feeding Seikyo energy. Chaos wave was essentially a form of sonar. He'd send out a wave of energy in front of him. That was so weak it couldn't be seen, felt, or heard by most people. That energy would move over an area, before coming back to Lu after a certain point. Once it came back, the energy would paint a complete picture of everything in front of him that the energy touched, including things that were invisible or disguised by illusions. It was a very useful move, and one he was glad Ji had helped him come up with. However, it did have a few very notable drawbacks. First of all, he had to stay completely still for the duration of the process. And he needed to have his eyes closed the whole time, otherwise, he'd suffer from complete sensory overload. And even with his eye closed, the information being forced into his brain still hurts quite a bit. In other words, it left him a sitting duck for about half a minute. Fortunately, with Seikyo's body still forming, he had some time. Lu formed some chaos spears and took a second to focus. Homing chaos spears. Li's spears shot out, curving through the air towards their targets, Lu awkwardly guiding them along. BAW. 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 The spears impaled the dark birds, destroying all the ones he detected in a matter of seconds. All right. Now for the ones on the other side, Lu said, turning around and once again using Chaos Wave, before forming more spears. Homing Chaos Spears. B.A. Ba Bakok. Once again the Grim were destroyed, leaving naught but dark smoke in the wind. Okay, that should be most of them, Lu said, rubbing his temples to try and alleviate his headache. There might be one or two more that I missed, so let's dash. Kaboom! Suddenly a bolt of dark energy blasted at him from below, blowing up the rooftop he was on and sending him flying. Ack! Lu hissed in pain as he was hurled into the air. Suddenly his body was encompassed by a dark aura, and he was slammed into the ground. Slam! 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 Psycho had recovered and was now using her telekinesis to lift Lu up and slam him down. Squoop! That was until Lu teleported out of her attack, once again vanishing from sight. Don't think I'll fall for the same trick twice, Sakio said, forming a strong barrier around her body. Squoop! Slam! Suddenly Lu teleported above her, with a large piece of a destroyed building. The ruble fell on top of her, squishing half her body, and trapping the rest of her. Squoop! 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 Lu continued to teleport large pieces of rubble onto Sakio, trapping her further underneath a massive, heavy pile of concrete and metal. Ugh! Lu fell to one knee beside the massive pile of rubble. Teleporting such large objects put a heavy strain on his body. His rings were once again glowing and hot, as he stained them as well. I hope this works. Meanwhile, underneath all the rubble, Sakio struggled. She tried to use her telekinesis to move some of the rubble, but it was too heavy. She could try to blast her way out, but she lacked the power to do so without leaving herself completely squashed. And she couldn't regenerate if something was occupying the space her body was supposed to be in. Lu had destroyed most of her couriers, meaning he'd weakened her quite a bit. Both the house and the abyss were too far for her to draw from, so the only place she could seek power from was the lab, which was just close enough. Unfortunately, the negative energy from there just wasn't enough to get her out of this. In other words, she'd lost. After deactivating the sim room and freeing Psycho from the rubble, and in new clothes, the two of them headed to Giza, who had been watching the whole thing from the control room. Very well done, Lu. Giza praised, looking down at the two kids. Lu looked ridiculously smug, while Psycho looked far more sullen. Your strategy was well thought out, and your new techniques were impressive. Giza continued. There was only one notable flaw in your plan. What? What? Lu asked, turning from smug to skeptical. Let's say that Psycho went on the defensive before you could destroy her body. How would you have handled that? Giza asked. You would have been left using up a lot of energy to try and destroy her body, and even if you eventually succeeded, you may have been too worn out to fully execute your plan. Which brings me to you, Psycho. Giza shook his head. Your regeneration has caused you to grow careless. While it is a powerful ability, it does not guarantee victory. As this battle has shown, defeat comes in many forms. When your opponent hides themselves, you should first make sure you're not vulnerable to attack, then ask yourself, why is your opponent hiding? Are they trying to escape, are they waiting for something, or are they trying to ambush you? Then after you've determined the most likely course of action, decide your response. The worst thing you can do is stand out in the open, waiting for them to attack you. It does sound really stupid when you say it, Sakio said, blushing with embarrassment. If you want an example of what to do when an opponent uses stealth, perhaps you should watch Himiko and Mu's battle, Giza said. It should be starting now. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. You ready? Himiko asked as she held her wooden knife. Mu nodded from underneath the cloth he was hiding under. The two had set the sim room to look like an abandoned warehouse, with dim lighting and shadows everywhere. Lots of boxes, machines, and the like to hide behind. And catwalks hanging above them. Let's go then, Himiko said, giving him a crazed smile. Mu threw off the sheet, vanishing using his quirk before Himiko could see him. Himiko then ran behind one of the crates, with Mu following to try and ambush her. But as soon as he turned the corner of the crate, he found that Himiko had vanished. He started frantically looking around for her, but it was no use. He'd lost her. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX didn't know how long exactly, but long enough that he knew he wasn't going to win like this. He hadn't managed to get even a glimpse of Himiko, and if he kept this up, he was going to use up all of the time he had spent in his dimension, and if that happened Himiko would win without a doubt. That meant he had to be a bit more daring and lure her out. Mu exited his dimension and put his back up against a crate, making sure she couldn't attack him from behind. He had to keep an eye out on both his sides and his front, lest he be blindsided. Ding! Suddenly Mu felt something fall on his head, and he immediately panicked, looking up, scared that Himiko would attack from above. Only to find nothing. And before he could even tilt his head down, he felt a wooden knife being pressed against his throat. He looked to the side and saw Himiko looking at him with a smug grin. I win. It took a second, but Mu realized what had happened. Himiko had hidden on the other side of the crate, threw one of her wooden knives over it to distract him, and then quickly went in for the finishing blow. Mu pouted. You're way too good at this. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX understand. Most of the fight was literally not a fight. It was Himiko running around trying to avoid Mu. And Mu trying to find her. Neither of whom they could see. Then it just ended abruptly. He probably would have fallen asleep if Giza hadn't kept slapping him awake anytime he started to drift off. Not all confrontations are filled with excitement, Giza explained. But this battle was a good display of how to deal with stealth. Firstly, when Himiko saw Mu vanish, her strategy was to leave his sight as well. Then, since she couldn't see him at all, she made sure to stay hidden in places that he couldn't see as well. Namely, using shadows and high-up places. Once Mu realizes his current tactic isn't going to work, he attempts to lure out his opponent, while covering one of his blind spots. His issue, however, was that he didn't consider that Himiko might attack him from above. In fairness, it would have been extremely difficult for her to attack directly from above, but Himiko utilized this in a brilliant way. Using her opponent's tension against him, distracting him by making him think she was attacking from an unforeseen direction, before going for the finishing maneuver. Yeah, she is too good at this, La noted. In that position, Mu's best option would have been to immediately vanish back into his dimension as soon as he realized he was under attack, and attempt to counterattack, Giza said. However, that would require reflexes and skill that can only be built through experience. So I can hardly blame him for his loss there. Regardless, Seikyo, do you understand what you did wrong during your fight? Yes, sir. Seikyo nodded attentively. Very good, Giza said. You two are dismissed. Stay sharp, and enjoy your day. Chapter 274, Omni Hour Part 1. Hello people of the world, and welcome to Omni Hour. Kiba said into a camera. Her, Ken, and Amai were all sitting around a round table, in front of the camera, with Fu and Shiruku recording them. Many of you have probably been looking forward to the next project from Omni Games. Well, today you can find out all about it. Ken said confidently. I present you Foundation Feud. The screen changed, showing the box art for the game, depicting various members of the Midoriya Foundation clashing with each other before the screen went back to the 3. Here, you'll be able to play as many members of our wondrous family in an action-packed fighting game, Kiba said eagerly. And even if you're not a fan of them, the gameplay is expertly crafted, with a wide variety of features that'll keep you hooked, Amai said. We've all worked really hard on this, and today we're finally going to show you everything. From general gameplay mechanics, down to specific characters and assists. Let's get started. General mechanics. The screen switched to show the game at the beginning of a match, with Izuku wielding his staff against Fu. Foundation Feud is a one-on-one, 2D fighting game, Amai explained. Well, technically one-on-one. Both characters will have one assist character. As you can see on the top of the screen right below the health bar, Mr. Midoriya has Eri helping him, and Fu is K as an assist, but more about that later. Most matches will have a 10-minute time limit, and when the time ends, whoever has the lowest health loses, Kiba explained. If both characters have the exact same amount of health, it's a draw. Although some characters can affect the timer. But we'll get to that later as well. This game works largely the same as most other fighting games, Amai explained. Hold back to block, press O for light attacks, triangle for medium attacks, and X for heavy attacks, or whatever equivalents you have for those on other controllers. And by making quarter circle and back quarter circle inputs, can change moves into special moves. Using the left back bumper you can summon your assist. All assists have 3 moves. Normal input, back input, and forward input moves, Ken explained. And using the right back bumper, you can use your super moves, Kiba explained. The flashy moves that can really change the tide of battle. But to do these moves, you need to build up your Midori meter, Amai continued. You can see both characters' meters at the bottom of the screen. Each time you do a move, you build up a meter. And each meter can go up 9 levels. Depending on how much meter you have, the more moves you'll have access to. And if you get up to 5 meters, you can unleash your ultimate attack. You can also use the top right bumper to meter burn certain moves and increase their power, speed, range, or something else, depending on the move. And lastly, we have the parry, which can be used with the upper left bumper, Kiba explained. By parrying certain attacks at just the right time, you can turn an opponent's advantage state into a disadvantage, or neutral state, Amai said. Or, in simpler terms, use it, and you can get your opponent off of you and start attacking them. That's all for the general mechanics, now let's get into the exciting parts. Kiba smiled. The characters. We can't go into full detail because that would take forever, so we'll just talk about the important parts, Ken said. Starting with Dash. Izuku Midoriya. Mr. Midoriya is practical, but not all too flashy, Amai explained. He wields a staff. In-game, Izuku did a few moves with his staff. Some swings, some pokes, etc. And a gun. Amai continued. Bang bang bang. In-game, Izuku pulled out a gun and shot Fu, with a few bullets. Using these tools Mr. Midoriya is great at mid-ranged combat and keeping foes back, Amai said. He may be plain, but he's not weak. That's Mr. Midoriya, in a nutshell. Lady Kiba and Hinata. The Player 1 character changed to Kiba, holding Hinata in her sword form. My turn. Kiba jumped in. In this game, I'm what Amai calls a rushdown character. Which means I need to be attacking the foe as much as possible. And why is that? Well, please direct your attention to the second meter above the Midori meter. That is my blood meter. It has 3 states. Full, hungry, and starving. And which state you are in heavily affects my character. Watch. Suddenly the screen split into 3. Showing Kiba in starving mode, hungry mode, and full mode all at the same time. All 3 Kibas did a short combo on Fu. Starving mode Kiba did absolutely pitiful damage. Hungry mode Kiba did a good chunk of damage. And full mode Kiba did a huge chunk of damage. Next, Fu did a short combo on her. Starving mode Kiba took a ton of damage. Hungry mode Kiba took a fair amount of damage. And full mode Kiba took significantly less. Next, each Kiba did a special move, where they made spikes made of shadows rise from the ground. Starving mode Kiba only made one spike come out right in front of her. Hungry mode Kiba made many spikes covering half of the ground. And full mode Kiba made spikes that completely covered the ground. Even my parry is heavily affected by the blood meter. Kiba continued. In starving mode, my parry is very slow and difficult to use. In hungry mode it's rather average, however once in full mode, I unlock the black wing parry. On screen Fu attacked her with a Kyosei claw, and Kiba parried it with a bat wing. Then, Fu shot one of his bones at her using his arm crossbow, and Kiba batwing parried it, right back at Fu. That's right, not only is the range of the parry extended, but it can also reflect projectiles right back from whence they came. Kiba shouted. Lastly, the super moves I can use all come back to the blood meter. If I'm in starvation mode I can't use any of them. If I'm in hungry mode I can use most of them, and if I'm in full mode, I can use my ultimate. Black Sun devours hope. On screen, Kiba suddenly burst with power, rushed forward with her wings, and struck Fu with her sword. Then a cutscene is initiated. Kiba flew into the air with her bat wings and smiled, as shadows rose up all around her, gathering behind her. Black Sun rise. Obey your queen. And devour my enemies. The shadows gathered into a giant black ball that blocked out the sun. Then serpent-like dragon heads came out of the black sun, rushed at Fu, and bit down on him, before bringing him back into the black sun, which grew a giant dragon head that completely swallowed Fu. And then it all exploded. Cut back to normal gameplay, Fu was on the ground, with most of his health gone. Amazing, isn't it? And it's one of the most damaging attacks in the entire game. Kiba said proudly. And no, this isn't biased. It's just that since you have to have 5 levels of meter and be in full mode, and you have to land it. So it's balanced. Speaking of balance, I'm sure you understand by now that the blood meter is very important. But there's still one more thing I should show you. Back to gameplay. In game, Kiba did a bunch of basic sword swipes on nothing, decreasing her blood meter with each swipe, until it hit 0. Ah! Kiba screamed as she fell to her knees. KO! Shouted the announcer. That's right, if the blood meter hits 0, you instantly lose. Kiba said. So, how exactly do you manage this all-important meter? Simple. Every time you hit the opponent, your blood meter increases. If they're blocking, it increases less. The meter will decrease on its own. But it'll go down faster every time you attack, or if you are attacked. How much it goes down depends on the power of the moves you're using or getting hit by. A simple mechanic, but one of deadly importance, I said. Feed on your enemies, and drink up victory, as Izuku Midoriya. Fu and Kyosei. Now you've probably noticed by now, the numbers on health bars. Ken pointed out. That's because each character has a different amount of health. And Fu has the most. Because it was either this or we added healing moves, and Amai hated that idea. Fu is a zoner, who uses his tendrils and bones to keep people on the other side of the screen. Amai jumped in. Meanwhile, in the game, Fu was fighting Kiba, who was attempting to approach him. But he hit her with a tendril to knock her back, before sending another tendril through the ground to keep hitting her. Once Kiba got up, Fu hit her with a bone crossbow. Then used it again and the meter burned it so multiple shots sprayed across the screen. Of course, Fu is very weak when you actually do get up close. Amai continued, showing Fu getting beat up as soon as Kiba got close. So he has a few tools to help with that. None more powerful than his parry explosion. Back to the game, Kiba got close and attempted to hit Fu with a sword, only for Fu to land a parry. And then explode. Fu then reformed almost instantly on the other side of the screen. Although some of his health was gone, a bar of meter had been used. Fu can burn 1 bar of meter on his parry, and trigger the parry explosion, Amai explained. Instantly teleport you to the other side of the screen. Although it does take some of your health. So only use it if you think your opponent will do more damage than the move. But none of that is the coolest part of Fu's moveset. Kiba added. That comes when you activate his ultimate. Back with the gameplay, Fu suddenly burst with power like Kiba did before, as a cutscene played. You asked for it, Kiba. In-game Fu said as he pulled out a vial of might concentrate, and gulped it down, as Kyosei covered his body completely. Rah, hi! Fu's body morphed into a muscle-bound monster, with razor-sharp teeth. Then cut back to gameplay, but now Fu was in this larger form. Behold Super Fu! Kiba said. Once Fu transforms he stays like this for the rest of the match. And gains tremendous power. Turning into a rush-down character. In-game Super Fu charged at Kiba, and started attacking Kiba with his claws, dealing huge amounts of damage. However, as Fu stays in this form, his health will go down over time. Kiba continued. So if you're playing against him, it's best to keep him far away. Ironic, huh? Make sure to adapt your playstyle, and use your brain to defeat your opponents, with Fu. Sansen. Now we have everyone's favorite liquid, Sansen. Ken started. Sansen is a grappler who wants to get as close as possible and grab her opponents, knocking them around for maximum damage. In-game, Sansen charged at Fu. Fu tried to shoot her with a bone projectile, but Sansen turned into a puddle, slid under the projectile, and Fu appeared on the other side of him, before grabbing Fu, squeezing him, and slamming him into the wall of the stage, and then continuing the combo. Normally Sansen is immune to most attacks, which we obviously couldn't put in the game, but that doesn't mean it's easy to damage her. Ken continued. In the game, Sansen started moving around the screen. Zipping all around, up and down, left and right. Using special moves to bounce around the sides of the screen, and move under attacks. Sansen is just hard to control, as she is to hit. If you can find a way to control her movement, you can give your opponent the slip. Amai said. Shiruku. Everyone's favorite fashion-forward spider girl joins the battle as a trapper, Kiba said. Spreading her webs and spiders all over the screen. Speaking of webs, let's talk about that. In-game, Shiruku then shot a web projectile at Fu, which, when it hit, immediately wrapped Fu up in a web cocoon. This is the web-wrapped state. Whenever you make contact with Shiruku's webs, you'll be trapped in a web cocoon for 3 seconds. More than enough time for Shiruku to start a proper combo on you. Kiba said. What's more, Shiruku doesn't even need to hit you with the webs directly. Back in game, Shiruku jumped up and then shot one of her webs downwards towards Fu. The web projectile landed on the ground in front of him. But instead of just vanishing when it hit the ground, it left a web on the ground. Shiruku then jumped up again and shot a web through the air, hitting the wall and leaving a web on the side of it. As you can see, when Shiruku shoots a web and it hits anything but the opponent, it will leave a web on that surface, Amai explained. And if you touch those webs. In-game Fu stepped over the web, and was immediately wrapped in a web trap. You get stuck in a web trap. Amai continued. This can be used to keep opponents from approaching you, setting up combos, or even extending them. In-game, Fu was trapped in the web, and Shiruku shot a web line, reeling him in before doing a combo on him, and then throwing him at the wall towards the other web. Trapping him once again, leading him into another, shorter combo. But she can do more than just web up her opponents. Let's not forget she is also the Queen of Spiders, Kiba added. Not as impressive as the Queen of Eternal Darkness, but still formidable. Back in the game, Shiruku used a special move and sent out a small army of spiders that moved across the ground. Eventually hitting Fu, causing him to become covered in spiders. Doing small bits of damage to him each second. When a spider attack hits you, you'll be covered in spiders, biting down and doing damage over time, Amai explained. So as you can see, her damage potential is insane. But she is not without weaknesses. Her spiders will fall off if she or her opponent gets hit. And she can only have 3 web traps at a time. Can you surround and overwhelm your opponents? Kiba asked. If so, then you'll thrive playing as Shiruku. Yami. Yami is the commander of an army of Grimm, and as such he brings that army into battle with him here as well, Kiba said. In game, Yami stood in battle, with 2 chameleon Grimm on his arms. He summoned a Beowulf to rush at his opponent. Then he started a combo from the other side of the screen, using his licker's long tongues as whips, and having various other Grimm jump in. Next, he started a combo by having a griffin fly in from behind and hit the opponent. Then he summoned a creep from underground to attack them. Yami relies on his Grimm to attack, using them to keep away his opponent and deal damage. Amai said. But there is one thing you should keep an eye on. You see that meter above the Midori meter? That's the misery meter. Much like Kiba's blood bar, the higher the meter, the better. It has 3 states: low, medium, and high. As the bar fills, you'll be able to summon stronger Grimm to come to your aid. Once again the screen split in 3, showing Yamis with low, medium, and high misery meters. All 3 summoned a Grimm to rush towards the opponent and hit them. Low Yami summoned a Beowulf, medium Yami summoned a Borbodusk, and high Yami summoned a Biringel. Next, all of them summoned a flying Grimm to attack them from behind. Low Yami summoned a Griffin. Medium Yami summoned a Manticore. And high Yami summoned a Wyvern. Lastly, each Yami summoned something from the ground to rise up and attack his opponent. Low Yami summoned a Creep. Medium Yami summoned a Sentinel. And high Yami summoned a Blindworm. And of course, the damage increased with each stage. So how do you fill this bar? Well, it goes up by itself. Ken said. The longer the fight goes on, the more the meter fills. So if you want to win, zone like your life depends on it. Can you get past the snarling beast? Or will you succumb to the army of darkness? Kiba asked. Face Yami in battle and find out. Netsu. For the most part, Netsu is your standard Shoto. Good at any range, but best at mid-range. But he does have one unique feature to him. Amai said. In-game, Netsu used a special move and burst himself toward Fu, and started attacking while Fu blocked. And despite not doing that much, he built up a bar and a half of meter. Now you might have noticed that he built up a lot of meter, Amai said. That's because Netsu's all about building up meter. Not only to use super moves, but because his ultimate requires a lot of meter. At first, your ultimate is called heating up. In-game, Netsu suddenly burst with power. Ha-ah-iya. As he screamed, his flames turned blue, and then it was over. Heating up is an install that increases the attack power of everything Netsu's does. Amai continued. You can do it twice. Going from normal flames to blue flames to white flames. Ha-iya. Once again Netsu activated his ultimate, turning from blue to white. And once the conditions are met, you can activate his true ultimate move. Kiba jumped in. White. Hot. Hell. Back in the game, Netsu burst with power once more, as a shortcut scene of Netsu charging his energy and bringing his hands together. You better dodge this one. White. Hot. Hell. A massive screen-filling blast of white fire flew at Fu, and when it hit him, another cutscene played, of the blast flying forward, completely engulfing everything around it, and destroying a good chunk of the stage. When the blast faded, the camera stayed on the destruction that the attack left behind. KO. The announcer shouted. That's right, this move is an instant KO. As it should be, considering you have to build up 15 bars of meter and hit the opponent. Kiba said. But even without using this, White Netsu's damage makes getting to that stage more than worth it. Stoke the flames of victory with Netsu. Ken and Nara. Ugh, did you have to lump me and her into the same part? Ken groaned. We went over this, Ken. Kiba sighed. You and Nara don't exactly have much to talk about. You both just shift forms when you do attacks. We could end the segment right there. I still say each one of my forms should have had their own moveset. Ken argued. And I can't even switch between forms in real life. Meanwhile, as they were arguing, the footage of Ken and Nara's gameplay continued to go on as if they were following the script. Ken, people hate it when a bunch of slots in a fighting game are taken up by the same person, even if it does make sense, I said. And this is just much cooler. Also, we're taking, what is it called, liberties. Yeah, that's right. We're taking liberties with what our quirks can do. I can't make shadows explode, but there's no chance I'm taking that out of my ultimate. Kiba added. Just be satisfied with what you have, your character's cool enough, you don't need to have 9 visions of yourself. Well, Ken heard Fu talking, although the audience could not because he lacked a microphone. What do you mean this section is over? What do you mean the footage has been running this whole time? Well, if that's the case, not much point going over it, Kiba said. Let's move on then. Damn it. Ken swore. Sheena. Moving on. Sheena is a rushdown character made to end fights fast. I said. Which is good, because you might have noticed something. In-game, Sheena was now facing Fu. But the timer was set to 9 minutes instead of 10. When you pick Sheena and start a fight, the timer will be reduced by 1 minute, I said. And the timer reaches 0, Sheena will be the one to lose no matter what. Unless both characters are Sheena, then it goes back to the default system. Sheena also has a very unique feature with her special moves, Kiba said. Each time Sheena hits you with a special move, depending on the move, it will kill one of your abilities. In-game, Sheena cut the ground, causing Fu to trip, slip towards her, and then Sheena unleashed another slash at him. And now he can't attack, Kiba said. That's right, Sheena's special move can disable things like attacking, guarding, parrying, using assists, and using specials or supers. Fortunately, it only lasts for 9 seconds. And Sheena has one last thing, Ken added. Here is what happens when you reach 9 seconds left in the match. In-game, the clock continued to tick down as normal, until it reached 9 seconds. Rah! Sheena cried as suddenly she started glowing red, and the sky turned dark. Then Sheena ran forward and hit Fu once. Ow wow! Fu cried sarcastically as he fell to the ground. KO! The announcer shouted. When the timer goes down to 9 seconds, Sheena enters death cry mode, I explained. In death cry mode, all of her attacks become instant kills. You can still block them, but if she lands a successful hit, you're done. Take up the scythe and become the master of death, as Sheena, Kiba added. Chapter 275, On the Hour Part 2. Yaba G and Inu. Moving on to our resident triple threat. Kiba continued. Yaba, G, and Inu fight as one, as they normally do. You can play as whatever sibling you want, but their moveset stays the same. The triplets have the special power to summon one another for their special attacks, I said. In the game, Yaba was facing up against Fu, and suddenly Inu jumped in and unleashed a flamethrower attack from center screen that hit Fu and left him stunned until the attack was done. Next, G appeared from behind Fu, and grabbed him, holding him still. Lastly, G jumped down from the ceiling, attacking Fu with her claws from above, but he blocked that. But Yaba meter burned the move, and Inu came rushing in on all fours, and hit Fu low, landing the attack. And of course, you can attack freely while the other girls are out, I said. Once again Yaba summoned Inu for the flamethrower attack. Fu blocked it this time, but Yaba rushed forward, threw the flames, jumped over Fu, and hit him from behind. Of course, to balance this there are a few downsides, Kiba said. First, you can only use one special move at a time. Second, each girl has a cooldown after being summoned. You can see this on the top of the screen next to the assist. You can also use half of your meter to reduce the cooldown. But you might want to save that meter for your ultimate, which requires all 9 bars of meter. But you most likely find the effect to be worth it. Back in game, suddenly Yaba burst with power as a cutscene played. Suddenly all the girls huddled together. "You ready?" Yaba shouted as she touched her collar. "Time to end this," G added as she did the same. Let's do this," Inu said as she also touched her collar. Light glowed from their collars, and when the light died down, the fused Cerberus stood in their place. "This is the part where you lose," Cerberus shouted as the cutscene ended and regular gameplay resumed, but with Cerberus there instead of Yaba. Their ultimate is called Cerberus Unite, and it allows them to turn into Cerberus for the rest of the match, Amai said. As Cerberus, you no longer have access to the other 2 girls, and instead you become a pure rushdown monster. In-game, Cerberus rushed at Fu with great speed, dragging him into a combo that did a lot of damage, before finishing with a super move, where she unleashed a wave of blue fire from her mouth. "B as 1, hunt your opponents down with the Cerberus sisters, and bite down on victory," Kiba said. "Le. I hope you like teleporting because with Lu that's his bread and butter," Amai said. "You got regular teleports." In-game, Lu quickly teleported in front of Fu. Aerial teleports. Amai continued. Lu teleported again, this time teleporting above Fu, and attacking him with his Chaos Jet Boots. "Counter teleports," Amai said. Lu crossed his arms, and Fu sent out a tendril to attack him, and when it reached him, Lu teleported behind Fu and kicked him. "Teleport grabs," Amai added. Fu was guarding, but Lu teleported in front of him and grabbed him, before teleporting both of them off-screen for a second. Then Lu teleported back down by himself, and Fu fell to the ground from off-screen, dealing damage to him. Teleport parries. Amai went on. Fu had Lu cornered and in a combo, but Lu found an opening, did his parry, and teleported to the other side of the stage, and then unleashed a Chaos Spear at Fu. And so on. Kiba finished. Prepare to be everywhere and nowhere at once, as Lu. Kano. Now it's time for the high-flying fashionista, Kano. Kiba continued. If you look on screen, you'll see Kano's special feature. On screen, Kano was facing off against Fu. But her feet weren't touching the ground. Then she started moving around, flying through the air freely back and forth. That's right, Kano can fly around the screen as she pleases, not bound by gravity. Kiba continued. And from the sky, she will try to dive down and take hold of her enemies. Back on screen, Kano dive-bombed Fu, grabbed him, and then started sucking his blood with her mosquito needle, before lifting him up into the air and throwing him. Next, she zoomed off the left side of the screen, before zooming back on screen from the right side, behind Fu, grabbing him, and draining his blood once more. But she has more than melee attacks. She commands swarms to attack her enemies and cover the screen. Kiba continued. Back in game, Kano was up in the air and snapped her fingers, summoning a swarm of mosquitoes that traveled from the right side of the screen towards the left, eventually reaching Fu, and then swarming him, keeping him from moving. Next, Kano snapped her fingers again, and a swarm of mosquitoes formed directly under her, staying there. Fu walked into it and was once again swarmed by the mosquitoes. Command your insect army, and drain your opponents dry, as Kano, Kiba said. Seikyo. Negativity is ever present on the battlefield, and so are Seikyo's attacks, Kiba said. In the game, Seikyo started throwing out attacks towards Fu, picking him up with telekinesis, making him explode, then doing a combo from a distance. Next, she shot a beam made of dark energy at him, before once again doing a combo. To be perfectly honest, Seikyo doesn't have any gimmicks or much to talk about, she's just a regular zoner, Amai admitted. So here is some gameplay. This time Fu was approaching Seikyo, but Seikyo batted him away with an energy sword, before doing another combo. Then Fu had Seikyo in a combo, but Seikyo parried one of the attacks, before sending a clone of herself to grab him. Lastly, Seikyo activated one of her super moves, forming a bow and firing a dark energy arrow. The arrow hit Fu, and even though he was blocking, it broke his guard and hit him normally. Master the dark energy and destroy your opponents from a distance as Seikyo, Kiba said. Yonda. The main antagonist of the Midoriya Foundation has arrived, Kiba said. Wielding her sonic hammer, Yonda steps onto the battlefield. Oh. It looks like something curious is happening. Meanwhile, on screen, Yonda was facing against Fu, but Fu's health was slowly going down. It looks like Yonda poisoned her opponent's food before the battle started. Kiba fake gasped. Her opponent's health will go down over the match, so you need to make sure to knock her out before it's too late. Good thing she doesn't have a lot of health. But she has a lot of other dirty tricks up her sleeve, Ken said bitterly. Ah ha ha ha. Pathetic. On screen, Yonda laughed. With an audio effect thrown in to make sure the audience knew she was speaking with telepathy. And then Fu glowed red and started moving towards her. This is Taunt, a special move that not only makes her opponent move towards her but also keeps them from doing anything but attacking. That includes blocking, parrying, and other moves that aren't attacks. Amai explained. Although the move will wear off once Yonda is attacked, or if she attacks you. It's a powerful tool against zoners, but also very risky because she's not too strong at close range either. Yonda used Taunt once again, and Fu came closer, but this time as he did, Yonda pressed a button from behind her back, and the ground under Fu exploded, sending him back. Yonda pressed it again, and an anvil came down and slammed into him. Oh. Looks like Yonda set up traps along the battlefield before the fight started. Amai said. She can set them off at any time, anywhere, so watch where you step. This time, Yonda approached Fu and grabbed him, before whispering something into his ear, letting him go, as Fu fell on his knees. Leaving him stunned. That's her crushing truth move. Where she tells you something you do not want to hear. Ken said. You won't be able to move until she attacks you. But Yonda has more than just dirty tricks up her sleeve, that hammer is a dangerous weapon, Amai said. Most of her attacks leave her open, but they also do a lot of damage. And on block, they do extra chip damage as well. Not to mention many of her attacks can leave the opponent stunned. Yonda got close to Fu, and then hit him with a wide hammer swing, tossing him into the wall, doing a lot of damage, and leaving him stunned, allowing her to do a combo on him. Can you withstand an endless barrage of dirty tricks and powerful strikes? Kiba asked. Face Yonda in combat, and find out. Assists. Now let's focus on the assist characters, Amai said. These are characters we wanted to include, but couldn't quite make movesets for. Yet. First, let's start with how assist characters work. Under the health bar, you can see your assist character, Kiba explained. As we said earlier, an assist character can use 3 moves, depending on input. However, some moves need meter in order to work. In the game, Izuku was facing Fu, and he summoned Eri who jumped in front of him, glowed green, stayed there for a second, and then went away again. After using an assist character, you can't use them again for about 10 seconds, Amai said. But dash. Izuku summoned another assistant, Kei this time, who went in front of him and tried to take off her visor, but Fu hit her, causing her to stop, and then go away. If the assist character gets hit, the cooldown becomes longer. 15 seconds. Amai continued. Eri is a purely defensive assist character, Amai explained. She can use up a lot of meters, but the results may be worth it. Her first move is called Unicorn Barrier, Kiba said. It's also her only move that requires no meter. Izuku was facing down Seikyo now, and Seikyo was about to send out a dark energy arrow. But Izuku summoned Eri, who jumped in front of him and took the attack. Eri will guard against all attacks, and take no damage whatsoever, Ken said. Her quirk heals her so fast it's like the attack never even happened. Her next move is called Healing Hand, Kiba said. Izuku summoned Eri, who appeared behind him, and touched him real quick, replenishing some of his health, and taking away some meters, before leaving again. It heals 20% of your health, in exchange for 2.5 bars of meter, Amai explained. And the last move is her most powerful move of all, Kiba said. Unicorn Mount. Once again, Izuku was facing Seikyo and summoned Eri. But this time she climbed onto him, and Izuku was surrounded by a green glow. Izuku then started moving towards Seikyo. Seikyo threw out various attacks, but Izuku pushed right through them without being stunned or taking damage. All the while his meter rapidly drained. Unicorn Mount makes your character completely invincible, but at the cost of draining your meter very quickly. Amai explained. And afterward, you won't be able to use her again for 25 seconds. So make sure to only use it if you have a lot of meter to spare, and if you're sure you won't need Eri again for a while. Kei. Kei's first move is called Hard on the Eyes. Kiba sighed. Yes, she made us make all of the names puns. Anyway, this move will simply summon her in front of you, and she will turn the opponent to stone. Back in game, Izuku summoned Kei in front of him, she took off her visor, and Fu turned to stone. Izuku then shot him, breaking him out of stone and doing a good bit of damage. If she turns you to stone, not only will you not be able to move until the opponent attacks you, you'll also take double damage from whatever your opponent's next attack is, Amai explained. But it is very easy to dodge. You can't block it, but you just dodge it by turning around, jumping, or ducking. Of course, doing any of those can leave you vulnerable, so be careful. Her next move is called Snaky Bite, Kiba said. Izuku summoned Kei again, this time she appeared behind Fu, grabbed them, and then had her snakes bite down on him, coating Fu with a purple aura, as his health slowly started depleting. It poisons the opponent for a few seconds, dealing damage, as well as making the opponent take more damage from attacks, Amai said. Her last attack is called Joking Hazard, Kiba said. It requires 2 bars of meter, and Kei tells a joke so bad, it does damage. Back in game, Izuku summoned Kei behind him, as he was facing Seikyo. I'm thirsty, got some negativity? Kei said in game. Budum tish. And then Seikyo lost some of her health. You can't block it, or dodge it, the only way to stop the attack is to stop Kei from finishing the joke, Kiba explained. Like we said, there are some inaccuracies in this game. Kei's snakes aren't poisonous, and even if you were foolish enough to attack her, she likely wouldn't stop with her puns. Kai. Kai is a special assist that can really turn the tides in your favor, or cause your demise if you're not careful, Kiba warned. All of Kai's attacks can hit both players, so you can't just use him willy-nilly unless you want to get crushed under your own stupidity, Amai added. Kai's first attack is Kaiju Quake, Kiba said. Kai stomps the ground off screen, causing everyone who was touching the ground. This time Kano was player 1, and she activated Kai's assist, causing the ground to shake, and Fu to trip. Next is called Wing Flap Hurricane, Ken said. Kai flaps his wings off screen, making a big gust of wind that pushes everything towards your side of the screen. And I do mean, everything. This time Kano was against Shiruko. Shiruko had some webs on the ground, while Kano had some mosquito swarms around. Then Kano activated Kai's assist, causing a large wind to burst through the screen, pushing Shiruko and Kano towards the left side, while blowing away the webs and mosquitoes. Shiruko tried to summon her spiders, but the moment they came, they were blown away. This movie doesn't only push enemies to your side, it also clears the screen of all traps and blows all projectiles away as well, Amai explained. Useful against characters like Shiruko, although it does need 2 bars of meter to use. Kai's last move is called a Tri-Assault, Kiba explained. It's similar to an ultimate move, but it does less damage than one, and only needs 3 bars of meter. Kai will bring his head in and attack 3 parts of the screen, and try to grab you. Back on screen, Kai's heads came down from above and managed to snag onto Fu. This transitioned into a cutscene, where Kai lifted Fu into the air, threw him up, grabbed him with another head's mouth, then slammed into the ground, and stepped on him. Then it transitioned back to the normal battlefield. Okay, I still think we should have made that do more damage, Kiba argued. If we did that, We would have to make it a full level 5, and if we did that it would be pointless since so many characters already have moves like that. Amai argued back. It does just enough damage to be useful and pressures the opponents into thinking they need to dodge it. Yeah, but it doesn't match up with the animation. Kiba retorted. That move looks like it should take most of your health away. Even if I got hit with that I probably wouldn't get back up for a second. Hey. We need to move on. Ken said. AKA. So if you recall, I said all of the assists had 3 moves, Kiba said. Well, that's only kind of true for AKA. She can take over the opponent's assist character. Using 3 bars of meter, you can take the opponent's assist character and use them 3 times, before they go back to the opponent's side, Amai explained. When you take over the assist, they won't have any cooldowns and can be used immediately, one right after another. But after you use all 3, AKA herself will go on a 30-second cooldown. But you don't have to use the assist all 3 times. Ken said cheekily. You can just use it twice, and then never use it again to make sure your opponent can't use their assist for the rest of the match. But you won't have an assist either. Himiko. Himiko is a master of stealth, and thus most of her moves attack the opponent from behind. And if she hits the opponent back, they do more damage, Kiba explained. Her first move is called double daggers. Back in game, Izuku was facing Fu again, and Fu was attacking Izuku, while Izuku blocked. Then Himiko came in from the opposite side of the screen and threw 2 daggers at Fu, forcing him to stop his combo, turn around, and block them, and now Izuku started attacking him while Fu blocked. Next is dagger press, Amai said. Izuku summoned Himiko once again and she grabbed Fu from behind, holding a dagger to his neck. Her last move is disguised disaster, Amai said. When you use this move, Himiko will secretly replace the opponent's assist, and when the opponent calls them, the assist will hit them instead. In game, Izuku activated Himiko's assist, and seemingly nothing happened except that Himiko became grayed out. Then Fu activated his assist, which was K, and K jumped out in front of him, only to immediately turn around and turn Fu to stone instead. Then K started melting away, revealing Himiko, who laughed and then jumped away. This move cost 1 bar of meter, and you can't use Himiko while she's disguised. This is the only way the opponent can tell that Himiko has taken over their assist. Amai explained. So if they're not paying attention, they can be taken off guard and done in by their own assist. OTO. Okay, so Oto is the only assist that really doesn't have 3 moves, Amai said. He has one. His Sonic Scream. In game, Izuku summoned Oto, who appeared in front of him, and unleashed a sonic scream, traveling across the screen, eventually hitting Fu and doing some damage. Now it may not look like much, but that's just because it's uncharged, Kiba said. Do you see that meter below Oto's assist icon? That is the scream meter. As the match goes on, it builds up and the fuller it is, the larger and more powerful the scream. Back to game, now Izuku summoned Oto again, but with a full bar. This time Oto's scream was the size of the entire screen, and when it landed, it did way more damage. Costumes. We finished with the characters, but we do have something we should mention before we go. Kiba said. Costumes. We've added in a ton of costumes that you can wear. Some were taken from things that happened at the house, others were made up for the game. Mostly Bishiroku and Kano. Ken said. And they're all free. We will add more costumes with DLC and you will have to pay for those, but let's face it, you're gonna pay for the characters and the costumes are just a bonus, Amai said. And almost every character has a special skin. The teen skin. Kiba said. This skin will not only age all of us up to around Caretaker's age, we will also be wearing hero costumes designed by Ko and Shiroku. I can't wait for you to see them. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX And that's all for now. Amai said. Foundation Feud will be available to buy in 2 weeks. So get your pre-orders in now, Ken said. Wield the power of the Midoriya Foundation to participate in fun-filled family fights, Kibas said. We'll be waiting. Chapter 276, God of Lightning. In the Midoriya labs, a young black man stared down at a test chamber. The man was dressed like any other scientist, however. What made him stand out was that almost all of him seemed to have been replaced with robot parts. Pretty much everything but his face for the most part, although his left eye was robotic. You seem nervous, Victor, Dr. Hikari pointed out as he stood next to him. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. Victor Rock was one of Dr. Hikari's pupils. One of his most promising ones, along with my. Namely due to his quirk. Technopath. Technopath allowed Victor to communicate directly with machines, understanding them, and interfacing with them in ways most people simply can't. Come now, my boy, show more pride. It's finally your day in the spotlight, Dr. Hikari told him, as he patted him on the back. You've been critical to this process. Without you, it might have taken us years more to get this project off the ground. Yeah, but I've been more of a research subject than a researcher, Victor pointed out. But now I'm actually taking the lead on the project. And it's a project all about human experimentation. What if something goes wrong? You know more about human-machine interfaces than anyone in this lab, likely anyone on this planet, Dr. Hikari assured him. I'm confident nothing will go wrong with Raiden's testing today. Suddenly the door opened behind them, and in came two children. A young brown-headed boy with a blue shirt and brown pants, and a blonde girl wearing a red dress. Dad, Raiden's ready for the test to begin, the boy said. Thank you, Raku. Raru, Dr. Hikari said, going over to pat the two on the head. Didn't know you had kids, Victor said, looking confused, before quickly putting it together. Androids? I always wanted children, Dr. Hikari said, going back to the test chamber window. Let us begin. With that, Raiden walked into the test chamber, katana in hand. I'm ready, Doc. Send them out. A platform rose up containing several sabers, Beowulfs, Borbatusks, Ursa, and Beringels. Go! Victor said. Krakum! 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 3 flashes of lighting blew through the room, and by the time Dr. Hikari's eyes could catch up to what was happening, Raiden was standing in the center of a cloud of black smoke that quickly dissipated into nothing. All vitals green. Damage taken, 0.2%. Victor said as he tracked Raiden's statistics. So many Grim destroyed in less than a second. You've outdone yourself, Victor, Dr. Hikari praised, patting his student on the back. Don't give me too much credit, most of that was done by his quirk, Victor said. Raiden Masamune. Quirk, Living Lightning. Allows the user to become a bolt of lightning, covering them with electricity, and instantly accelerating them in one chosen direction at the speed of lightning. Users cannot change direction until they hit something, and the user's body is protected from the impact and lightning via a magnetic force. This diminishes with each consecutive use of the attack, making the user more vulnerable to their own attack. Yes, but Raiden would never use his quirk 3 times in a row this early on in the test unless he had faith that your augmentations would protect him, Dr. Hikari pointed out. All I did was augment and support the magnetic reinforcement field, and then enhance his body to withstand any residual force, Victor said. Anyway, let's start test number 2. Inside the chamber, a large door opened, and in came a Mega Goliath. Once the Mega Goliath was in place, Victor called it. Start. Krakum. 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 Once again in 3 flashes of lightning, Radian was now under the Mega Goliath, which had been sliced in half, before fading away into smoke. Incredible. With that level of attack potency, the list of things that could withstand Raiden's attacks is very, very short, Dr. Hikari explained. If everything goes as intended, Raiden should be able to hang with the strongest fighters on Earth, Victor explained. Which reminds me, we should get on to the final test. I don't think she'll want to wait much longer. The doors to the chamber opened up once more, and in walked Sori. Hey there. Looking pretty tough. So you're the so-called god of lightning. And you must be Sori Jaga, the savage guard. Raiden said as he sheathed his sword. Yeah, I'd say I've gotten pretty strong. Since you're here, I guess we're done with the warm-ups. Sori took her place, walking to the opposite side of the room, and then facing Raiden, before getting into a fighting stance. Hope you don't mind if I keep more sword sheathed, Raiden said as he raised his sheathed sword. Much as I would love to tell you to unleash that bad boy, I'm not that stupid, and I don't have a death wish. Sori chuckled. But enough talk. Let's go, Tin Man. Krakum. 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 For just a second. Maybe a couple of seconds, the chamber filled with light. And when the light vanished, the fight was already decided. Sori was pressed against the wall, and Raiden's blade was pushed against her stomach. Thankfully it was sheathed. Her body was covered in bruises and burns, and blood was leaking from her mouth. Raiden, on the other hand, had several parts of his body carved out. His mechanical eye was completely gone, and his dominant arm was no longer functional, forcing him to hold his sword with his other arm. Ha, ha. He. Ha 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 ha. Sori started laughing like mad, as she looked at Raiden with a smile on her face. That was fucking awesome, man. I've never fought like that before. You really are freakishly strong, you know that, Raiden grunted. Very glad he couldn't feel pain right now. Without my augmentations, I wouldn't have stood a chance. Nah, I was using a fractal this whole time too, so who knows how it woulda went, Sori admitted. Victor, could you see any of what just happened? Dr. Hikari said, having seen absolutely none of the battle. Barely, Victor said. Thanks to his own augmentations, he had been able to see the battle, but he needed to rewind the footage in his head to actually analyze it. Sori, even with her fractal, was not as fast as lightning. Not even close. But Raiden's lightning-like movement was limited. His lightning charge could move in only one direction until he hit something. So if you managed to move out of the way just as he activated his quirk, with enough speed, you could get out of the way of his charge. Or even attack him during it, provided they could get past the lightning. Which brought into account his second weakness was that he had to take time to pick the next direction he would charge in, and activate his quirk. Of course, with the modifications made to his brain, that amount of time was very short. Less than a second. But Sori was fast, and smart enough, to both dodge Raiden's initial strikes, and counterattack. At least while she used her fractal. However, while doing all this was possible for her, it put an incredible strain on her body, pushing her to her limits, and she had to do everything absolutely perfectly, exploiting the tiniest of windows of opportunities in order to stand a chance. Any lesser fighter wouldn't have been able to do it, but Sori didn't spend her whole life training for nothing. In response, Raiden had to respond and try to overwhelm Sori, take her off guard, get her into a position where she couldn't dodge his attacks, or just get close enough to her to shock her into submission. In the end, Sori took a gamble on the direction of Raiden's strike, guessed wrong, and got pinned. Astounding, both of them. Dr. Hikari commented. 42% damage. Damn. Victor said. Could he continue fighting? Dr. Hikari asked. He could, but with his magnetic flux enhancer damaged, he's gonna start taking some serious damage every time he uses his quirk, Victor explained. Though honestly, I can't say this was a failure. We just underestimated Jaga. So can you still drink alcohol like this? Sori asked as the two started walking out of the chamber. I wouldn't have accepted this gig if I couldn't, Raiden said. But let me get some repairs first. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX when suddenly he heard a knock on the door. Knock knock. Come in. The man sighed as he set down his pen. A woman came in, holding an armful of papers. Sir, we may have discovered something about the location of Jack's strike. Immediately, the man perked up, turning from exhausted and ready to not listen to half of what she was saying, to full alert. Spit it out. Where? We recently got a report that one of the planes that was headed out of Detroit into Japan had evidence of a stowaway. The woman explained. After further investigation, once the plane landed back in America, we found a hair sample belonging to Jack Strike. Slam! The man punched his desk so hard that the woman flinched. Fucking damn it! The man shouted. I want a full investigation as soon as possible. If the Midoriya Foundation finds him, then we'll never get our hands on him. Sir, are you saying that the Midoriya Foundation would aid and abet a wanted foreign criminal? The woman asked. Bitch, the Midoriya Foundation is a few steps off from taking over the fucking world. Even if this is discovered, this won't do shit to him. The man shouted. And with that man's bleeding heart and Jack's sob story, there's no doubt. Now hurry. Why yes sir. The woman said before running out of the room, closing the door behind her. A paper fell from her arms, with a picture of a white-haired man that said Jack Strike. Wanted for treason. That will be it for this part. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 52. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.